We'll be giving away 2 baskets, one for dinner in, courtesy of East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Save, along with True Value inside of East Rochester Shop and Save. The second basket is full of goodies from local retailers, over a $200 value. See a picture of the basket on our Facebook page. The special edition of The Time Machine on Beaver County Radio is being brought to you by Rosalind Candy Castle, East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Saves, along with East Rochester True Value, Mary Kay Cosmetics, Pappy's Handcrafted Candles, Polly's Leggings and Gifts, Town Square Restaurant, and Beaver County Radio.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls. Beaver County Radio's news source. 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Good morning on this Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. The Beaver County weather forecast is calling for a partly sunny day today with a high hovering around 40. We'll go over the full details of your weather forecast following this look at news. Patterson Township Police released a warning on Monday to its residents to lock their vehicles and retain all belongings following multiple break-ins on Sunday night along the 400 block and 700 block of 18th Avenue. The police department released the warning on Facebook at around 8:30 on Monday morning, asking that if anyone in the area has camera footage of the incidents, that they call the Patterson Township Police at 724-846-8400. Again, that's 724-846-8400. No names or further details have been released at this time. Resignations and a retirement were on the agenda at the New Brighton School Board meeting last night. Here's Beaver County Radio's Curtis Walsh with further details.
The New Brighton Area School Board met Monday evening for a committee meeting. Among the items to be voted on was the resignation of Amy Fazio from the board. The board will also vote to accept the resignation of Tony Calciori as the middle school assistant track coach to be replaced by Nick Echo. They will also vote to accept the retirement of Holly Ziegler as an elementary school teacher. The items will be voted on at their next meeting, February 26th. From New Brighton, this is Curtis Walsh reporting for Beaver County Radio News.
The Center in Midland has received a $3,000 donation from Vistra Energy and its subsidiary Dynergy on Monday, which will go to its youth development program. Along with the youth development program, the center is also responsible for a food bank, thrift shop, mentoring services, and counseling, among other resources. They have on-site counselors and community volunteers to help run the operation. Members from Vistra and Dynergy were at the center yesterday, along with State Representative Josh Kale, to present the award, which is part of a $10,000 initiative by Vistra to organizations throughout Beaver, Butler, and Washington counties. Residents of the area may need an extra dime or two to make up the difference in gas prices this week. According to AAA East Central's latest report, the average price for a gallon of unleaded gasoline has jumped up to $3.52 across western Pennsylvania. That average is 8 cents higher than last week's $3.44 a gallon, and down 41 cents from the average of $3.83 1 year ago. Beaver County has increased their prices 3 cents to $3.49 a gallon this week. Pittsburgh moves up 6 cents to be at $3.50 a gallon, and Butler takes a 5-cent jump to $3.54 for a gallon of gas this week. The national average has also risen, moving up 5 cents this week to $3.19 a gallon, according to AAA East Central. Pennsylvania's 2024 primary election may lack drama in the high-stakes races for president and U.S. Senate, but the field for lower ballot contests are filling up for state attorney general and a handful of its 17 U.S. House seats. Tuesday at 5 p.m. is the deadline for Republicans and Democrats to submit voter signatures to get on the April 23rd primary ballot. Pennsylvania's primary election is relatively late, and by then, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden may have locked up the delegates they need to become their party's nominees for president. Meanwhile, Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Casey and Republican challenger David McCormick appear unlikely to face primary opponents. Authorities say the shooter who opened fire at a Texas megachurch over the weekend had a history of mental illness and used an AR-style rifle in the attack that also critically injured their 7-year-old son. Police identified the shooter as 36-year-old Genesee Ivani Moreno. They noticed Monday that Moreno sometimes used both male and female aliases. Investigators have not yet established a motive in the shooting at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church. They are looking into a dispute involving Moreno and the family of Moreno's ex-husband. Moreno was killed by off-duty officers working security. Police say Moreno's son remains in critical condition with a gunshot wound to the head. Stocks are falling on Wall Street after a key reading on inflation at the consumer level in the U.S. came in hotter than expected. S&P 500 futures fell 1.1% about 10 minutes after a report from the Labor Department. Dow futures fell 0.8%, NASDAQ futures fell 1.6%, and bond yields jumped. The Labor Department report released Tuesday morning showed that consumer prices rose 3.1% in January compared to a year ago. Economists were expecting an increase of 2.9%. European indexes added to their losses after the U.S. inflation report. Asian markets were mostly higher.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
Cloudy through mid-morning, but we'll see some sunshine as the day goes on, a high near 41. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low of 28. More sunshine in the forecast tomorrow with a high near 42. I'm Lisa Marie with your Beaver County weather.
That's a look at news for now. I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and streaming worldwide at beavercountyradio.com.
Talk about what's happening in Beaver County or around the world
now,
on Teleforum. It's 724-843-1888 on Beaver County Radio, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and beavercountyradio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddie Crow.
It is Teleforum. I'm going to take you behind the curtain just a little bit. When we have guests come in, you can usually tell, once you've done this a little bit, you can usually tell if the guest is going to be trouble. I welcome trouble. DJ Frye of Frye Transportation Group joins me now. I was getting heckled during the news. What's up with you, man? Good to see you. This is being live Facebook feeded, so if you've got questions for DJ, and I got a lot, but first off, how you been?
Doing well, buddy. I tell you what, Eddie, if I'm trouble, you're double trouble. So I guess that's a good name to call this segment today.
Okay.
Double trouble.
Well, it sounds like, and we've talked off the air briefly, it sounds like there's more than double trouble. If you don't know, Frye Transportation, that's those school buses, those clean school buses, the shiny ones, the ones that ain't mud covered. I saw a couple of stories, and nobody better than you would be able to explain what's going on. There are electric buses that are coming to Allegheny County under a grant. I want to get your opinion. How many buses are you responsible for? Let's start there.
So right now, our fleet, it's made up of both school buses and school vehicles. So I think we're right around 145, 146, somewhere in that ballpark.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
But as far as buses go, we're right around the 90 mark.
So almost triple digits. When you hear people bringing up electric bus, what's your first reaction?
You know what? First of all, I think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating concept because, again, it's 2024. There's so many wonderful ideas out there. So that's the first thing that comes to mind is, wow, this could be pretty cool. But then, I take a step back and think about, the trench that I live in every single day and think, okay, how could this be practical? And you always have to think immediately, what's the cost? And when I say cost, it doesn't necessarily mean my cost as far as operational goes, because I'm sure this will come up as we talk today. Mm-hmm. My cost is always associated with school districts. And it's a pass-through, unfortunately, to all of us being taxpayers, local taxpayers. So,
school taxes.
School taxes. And I know it's a hot topic, it's a red topic button here locally. Mm-hmm. It's something that's very sensitive to me. We make decisions in our operation around that. So I know we have a lot of local callers that have a lot of interest in that topic right there. But again, the electric bus, I think it's great. I really do. I'm here to answer any questions, pros, cons, whatever it may be on the electric bus, but there is certainly a cost.
Give me a pro.
I guess it's one of the pros is it's really, for what it's worth, it keeps the environment clean. I mean, I think there's a little to that. Now, let's pull that layer back a little bit, too, because we're going to have some callers talk about the batteries and where they're made and all this, and I get that as well.
And who's digging up the lithium and things like that.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, sure. And I'll be honest with you. I specialize in school buses, so I leave the rest of that stuff to, our leaders, our state leaders, our federal leaders, everybody besides me. I don't really know those answers. I just make sure kids get to and from school safely.
Would you buy them?
You know what?
A grant is providing 60 or 70 buses for the 3 districts in Pittsburgh. The grant's paying for the buses, but would you buy them? I said, give me a pro.
Yeah.
Is there?
Not right now.
Okay.
There's not. And we can get in the weeds. We can get in the red lines of that grant and how that works. Right now, unfortunately, I'm a Beaver County boy, Beaver County Radio. By the way, what a beautiful What a beautiful room this is.
This is
Great
way
studio.
clean. It's the cleanest, the most
Wonderful studio.
disease-free studio that has ever existed. And we're
beautiful
working
studio.
to change that.
So, with that being said, right now there's a lot of red lines to this grant, and I guess I'll start and run with it here on this. So the grant,
what is in your mind, what is a red line? A red flag?
Red flag.
Okay.
Here's some
All
red
right.
flags. Okay, so let's talk about the price tag right now of the electric school bus. $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. We've heard it all. Each.
And you got 90.
Each, and all of those 90, and we'll be over 100 by the end of this month. Each of those 100 have all been under $100,000. So what's going on is, and I'm sure we're Facebook Live, you can see. So what the grant basically says is, school districts. There's 3 waves. The very first wave of this grant, you had to buy a minimum of 20 buses, electric buses. But the kickstart that is, the money could only be applied for by a school district, and the school district had to be considered a low-income deprived school district. Okay, unfortunately, if you would add the school districts in Beaver County up that would possibly qualify according to what they have submitted, the data. If you add up all of the buses used for those 3 school districts in Beaver County, we wouldn't even come close to 20 buses. So we wouldn't meet the criteria of step 1.
Would it have been considered had the step? Well, how many steps are there? First off,
Well, step 2,
a lot of hoops.
Yeah, so step 2, they basically they kept the requirement of who could apply for it, being the school districts. Okay, but they pulled back the 20 minimum, which was wonderful. I mean, if you were going to jump in, that's when you wanted to jump in. That ran out in January. We're back to now the 3rd phase, which is basically repeating that first one. So they're back to the 20 minimum. Again, it's the same school districts.
It's like a subscription fee. We'll waive it. Now they aren't even waiving it.
That's correct. Now, what I was going to explain was, let's just say the bus is $300,000.
Okay.
What this has done to the price of the almighty diesel bus, it has caused it to increase, because this grant is really like filling that pothole with this money. So what grant states that DJ Frye can buy an electric bus, and DJ is going to buy that bus for what he would buy a current diesel bus for.
Right. You're not going to spend triple if you're in bad business.
In the last 28 months, the diesel bus has gone from high to mid 90s till we just got a quote for $145,000 in 28 months. So the electrification school bus, or the threat of the electrification bus, has increased that diesel bus. So now you have a $300,000 electric bus, you had a $95,000 diesel. It has shrunken that pothole that the grant is going to fill.
They're trying to help meet in the middle a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
Is that what?
Sure,
okay, but what's your cost? Let's say you buy in and you're fired up and yay environment, and DJ Frye orders, let's say 5, just going outside of the rules, 5 electric buses. What's the upkeep on those compared to the diesel buses that you're trying to use to replace?
Right. So let's start with converting all 3 of our big terminals to charging stations.
All right.
So, we haven't got talking about that just yet.
That ain't cheap, is it?
It's not cheap.
There's a lot of copper in them things.
Let's pause and talk about the local safety. So we work very well with our guys and gals in blue, our first responders, our police, our fire departments. We love those first responders. Right now, there's a lot of questions on their end as far as how do they attack, or how do they service a electric school bus vehicle, electric school bus fire or electric vehicle fire. So there's a lot of fascinating things even with that conversation alone.
Is it a little bit goofy to think you'll put kids in a bus that's run by a power source that is demonstrated that if it catches on fire, it keeps catching on fire? The thermal jumping that goes on a car, you can put out a Tesla 5-6 times before you finally get it put out.
It's really scary. It really is. And it really ties into probably another topic that maybe a caller will ask us to bring up, or you, Eddie, I was on the local news yesterday talking about the possibility of school, seatbelts put in school buses. So there's a lot of really tough conversations.
Whose idea is it to put seatbelts on school buses?
So, it's been a can that's been kicked around for many years now. I mean, I can think back 10 years ago when it was introduced. And, every year it seems, or every 2 years it pops up and then it kind of just phases out. We just had one of our wonderful, representatives, local representatives, and it's not a bad idea, because I'll be the first to tell her and him or whoever it may be. I'll be the first to say, we already have the safest vehicles in the world. It's as American as you can possibly get, that yellow school bus, right? Mm-hmm. It already is very safe. I'll be the first one in line if you have something that I can put on my buses to make them any safer. So again, if somebody has an idea, a bill, a law, or whatever it may be, that the engineers say it definitely, without a doubt, makes it safer, I'll be the first one in line. I promise everybody in Beaver County that.
Why does it not make people safer?
School buses, or the seatbelts?
Seatbelts. As a professional, because we got taught, oh no, we've seen the stats, seatbelts save lives. Mm-hmm. Why is that not necessarily the view when you're talking about a row of kids?
So, the safety belts, if you ask anybody off this side of the street, should they put seatbelts in school buses? Anybody, including myself, would probably say immediately, yeah, why not? They're not on there already, or hey, yeah, they should be. But it's something I live every day. I see, so anytime I see crash data or I see, a crash out there, I play devil's advocate with it. I look at it both ways. School buses, let's start with we're talking about the Class C bus, the big ones.
Okay.
Because the smaller buses already have seatbelts in them. School vehicles have seatbelts.
The shuttle vans, all those
That's right.
already
We're
there.
talking about the big guys, the Class C, the 72 passengers, 66, 78 passengers, okay? So start with the construction. It is very high off the ground. You're going to notice when you look on the side of the bus, they're called rub rails, impact rails on a bus. One protects basically the undercarriage of the bus. The other one symbolizes where the feet of the passenger is in that bus.
I read that. That shows you where the line of the floor is from the outside.
That's right. The third one up is going to be basically basically where the seat is, okay, mm-hmm. The hips. And then the other one's the top of the shoulders, okay? So when you're looking at a side impact crash, if my, F-150 truck or a little van or a van, whatever to say it may be, hits the side of a bus, we're pretty good inside the bus. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about the inside construction. It's called a compartmentalization. Okay. It's like an egg in an 8 cart. It just shakes around. Mm-hmm. Okay,
dissipates the G-forces.
That's right. Okay. So now, unfortunately, it's not going to be great for the other vehicle, because 9 times out of 10 that vehicle's lower and you're up underneath the feet of the passengers in the mm-hmm. bus, to be honest with you. So mm-hmm. that's number one. That's what makes it extremely safe. Mm-hmm. Okay, that compartmentalization, it's padded in there. You might walk away with maybe a broken arm or whatever the case may be, but we're walking away nonetheless. And mm-hmm. that's really a lot of the bad crashes that we've seen in Pennsylvania for the last 10 years. We've seen rollovers. We've seen buses. Again, it's really difficult to get that bus, on its side. But knock on wood, we pray for every single day, and we think of those who unfortunately have maybe lost their lives or had a family member lose their lives in a bus crash in the last 50 years. But typically, we're on the side of luck when the accidents have been occurring the last 10 years.
DJ Frye of Frye Transportation is my guest. If you've got questions, because, hey, your tax dollars are involved in this, and they could be involved in this to the tune of electric vehicles, unless somebody with logic like DJ steps up. If you've got questions, call 724-843-1888 or 774-1888. This is on our live Facebook page, Beaver County Radio. Are people getting, and this is off the subject, and I'm not going to let you leave because I want to stay on a couple subjects after the news, but completely off the subject. Have people not caught on yet that there are cameras, and when they go around the bus, they're going to get busted?
You would think they would.
Yeah.
I mean, they would. I mean, years ago, we used to post a lot of social media videos, not to shame anybody, but really just to drive awareness.
Shame them. Shame them.
Nowadays, the technology, not only the bus that we're speaking of, is phenomenal. It's fantastic. I'm a Beaver County boy, so the technology in the school districts that we service, fortunately, they're up to date and they're great. So a lot of times our police officers, they'll take our videos, we'll share our reports, but they have a pretty good idea who that vehicle was.
They know. Can I tell the truth? They know instantly.
Which is wonderful.
Which is good. I was an idiot when I first started driving. Even I knew if the school buses stopped, even if the sign's not out, you stop because there's going to be some little urchin that's going to run out in front of you.
That's right. And in this year, we made a big financial investment, and it's to help our drivers and our staff. And it has a little bit of an AI to it.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of it's
virtual Johnnies in a fight in the back,
and it helps. It really does. And that's not the reason we bought that. We bought that because it is the latest and the greatest technology that helps protect our drivers, protects the school, protects the parents, and protects the students. So it's a win-win for all. It's called Samsara. So Samsara has a wonderful driver camera. It's a GPS tracker. It allows us, if the drivers happen to be going over 6 miles an hour over, we get a text, push message, all those kind of things. But it also gives the functionality to where a parent can really, they know when that bus is coming. They know where their child's bus is at.
They've got an app that GPS locates to tell you.
We have the ability to, go ahead and share an app and have those neat things. The good news is we like to take pride in the fact that we're pretty consistent on the pickups and drop-offs, that we really don't really need to utilize that, but it's there if we do need it.
You were talking about seatbelts, and you said it came up 10 years ago. Is this something that comes up every 5 or 10 years, and you just have to talk people off the ledge, or does the pitch get better over time?
Well, it always gets stronger because typically, what brings it up is, unfortunately, it's been an accident. I think everyone here in Beaver County knows that the beginning of this school year, there was a unfortunate accident. I believe it was Sarah School District, but it was a school van. And that van is, it's a wonderful van. That's the same van that you and I would drive our families to Myrtle Beach in or down to Disney World in. So it's a very safe vehicle that has seatbelts in it. Unfortunately, that is not commercially constructed like a school bus, built much different. But again, I think everyone's familiar with the story that beautiful young lady lost her life, unfortunately, because there was some speeding involved with Vehicle 2. I believe they were racing and, smashed in that van. But those are two different waist sizes. It's hard to compare apples to that.
Where does the line get drawn? What you're allowed to use van-wise, like a regular passenger van, versus the rules of a 50-foot long or however long school bus?
So that's done with the taxpayer in mind.
Okay.
So there's a lot of outskirt areas in all of our districts to where that student's going to have to walk 2 miles or 1.5 miles to a bus stop, or we just can't get a school bus safely with other kids on board to that house. So we'll utilize vans to go pick those students up. The vans have been used for many, many years for any out-of-district transportation, special needs transportation, but there's certainly a huge need, valued need in our industry for those school vehicles. But that's the reason why we would use those vehicles is instead of paying top dollar for sending another bus that you might only have 3 or 4 kids in.
Right, that's not cost efficient.
Let's send a much lower operational cost vehicle, more fuel efficient, just as safe in a lot of ways. Go get the students and let's bring them into school that way.
What's the flipping point? How many kids do you need on a bus to make it efficient?
So a great question. So on the school vans, we're capped in this state. We can't have more than 9 students on a school van, 10 passenger vehicles, 1 being the driver. On the bus side of things, we logistically route everything to as being full capacity as possible. How it's drawn up in Pennsylvania is kindergarten through 6th grade. You can have 3 seats or 3 students to a seat. That's 72 passengers.
All right.
Once you hit 7th grade to a senior of age, you can only have 2. So that same 72 passenger bus, unfortunately, only becomes a 48 passenger bus, which that's exactly what would happen if we had seatbelts in school buses.
I didn't even think about that.
You're losing capacity, which means more labor needs, more buses on the road. And I also will say, when I do have the opportunity, like you said, you asked, why do these topics come up every so often and then kind of get kicked out of conversation? It's because we finally get an opportunity to sit down and share our angle. Hey, look, I think this is great. Here's the concern. The biggest concern is I want to make sure no one takes us the wrong way. Again, I'm in the safety industry. If you can add 1% additional percent of safety to my vehicles, I'll be the first lobbyist that you need. However, there is a tremendous price tag, and I will never sacrifice safety for price. But it's a conversation that needs to be had because you and I know this, Eddie. I'm cautious, and I know and I respect that 80 or 70% of the houses in Beaver County, we're talking all school districts, Beaver County, 70% as a whole don't have a child in school or they don't have a grandchild in school right now, but they pay school taxes. So someone like myself is very cautious and aware of that, and that's why we try to be as efficient economically, financially as we possibly can to the districts.
DJ Frye with me. You going to hang out more?
Yeah, why not?
I got more questions for you. News is next. DJ Frye of Frye Transportation is my guest. If you've got questions or got comments up on the Facebook page, that's good. You can put your question in the comments section of the Facebook page, or you can call it in. We're going to do news now.
Love is in the air, and Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Why fight the crowds by going out to dinner? Cook dinner at home and let the East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Save be your one-stop shop for you to spoil your Valentine. For starters, at the East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Save, you can get your sweetheart flowers for the table and beer or wine to sip on as you wait for the main course. They have surf and turf, as well as a variety of steaks, seafoods, and chicken, along with everything else that you need for that special meal. The bakery at East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Saves has treats as sweet as your sweetheart, like heart-shaped mini cupcakes and chocolate chip cookies. They also have Valentine-themed cakes, cupcakes, and pastries of multiple varieties. Finish that up with that perfect greeting card, and you will be set for the perfect romantic evening at home. While at East Rochester Shop and Save, take a look at the True Value Hardware. They have everything you need for your next project. That's the East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Saves.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Good morning on this Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. The Beaver County weather forecast is calling for a partly sunny day today with a high hovering around 40. We'll go over the full details of your weather forecast following this look at news. Patterson Township Police released a warning on Monday to its residents to lock their vehicles and retain all belongings following multiple break-ins on Sunday night along the 400 block and 700 block of 18th Avenue. The police department released the warning on Facebook at around 8:30 on Monday morning, asking that if anyone in the area has camera footage of the incidents, that they call the Patterson Township Police at 724-846-8400. Again, that's 724-846-8400. No names or further details have been released at this time. Resignations and a retirement were on the agenda at the New Brighton School Board meeting last night. Here's Beaver County Radio's Curtis Walsh with further details.
The New Brighton Area School Board met Monday evening for a committee meeting. Among the items to be voted on was the resignation of Amy Fazio from the board. The board will also vote to accept the resignation of Tony Calciori as the middle school assistant track coach to be replaced by Nick Echo. They will also vote to accept the retirement of Holly Ziegler as an elementary school teacher. The items will be voted on at their next meeting, February 26th. From New Brighton, this is Curtis Walsh reporting for Beaver County Radio News.
The Center in Midland has received a $3,000 donation from Vistra Energy and its subsidiary Dynergy on Monday, which will go to its youth development program. Along with the youth development program, the center is also responsible for a food bank, thrift shop, mentoring services, and counseling, among other resources. They have on-site counselors and community volunteers to help run the operation. Members from Vistra and Dynergy were at the center yesterday, along with State Representative Josh Kale, to present the award, which is part of a $10,000 initiative by Vistra to organizations throughout Beaver, Butler, and Washington counties. Residents of the area may need an extra dime or two to make up the difference in gas prices this week. According to AAA East Central's latest report, the average price for a gallon of unleaded gasoline has jumped up to $3.52 across western Pennsylvania. That average is 8 cents higher than last week's $3.44 a gallon, and down 41 cents from the average of $3.83 1 year ago. Beaver County has increased their prices 3 cents to $3.49 a gallon this week. Pittsburgh moves up 6 cents to be at $3.50 a gallon, and Butler takes a 5-cent jump to $3.54 for a gallon of gas this week. The national average has also risen, moving up 5 cents this week to $3.19 a gallon, according to AAA East Central. Pennsylvania's 2024 primary election may lack drama in the high-stakes races for president and U.S. Senate, but the field for lower ballot contests are filling up for state attorney general and a handful of its 17 U.S. House seats. Tuesday at 5 p.m. is the deadline for Republicans and Democrats to submit voter signatures to get on the April 23rd primary ballot. Pennsylvania's primary election is relatively late, and by then, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden may have locked up the delegates they need to become their party's nominees for president. Meanwhile, Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Casey and Republican challenger David McCormick appear unlikely to face primary opponents. Authorities say the shooter who opened fire at a Texas megachurch over the weekend had a history of mental illness and used an AR-style rifle in the attack that also critically injured their 7-year-old son. Police identified the shooter as 36-year-old Genesee Ivani Moreno. They noticed Monday that Moreno sometimes used both male and female aliases. Investigators have not yet established a motive in the shooting at celebrity pastor Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church. They are looking into a dispute involving Moreno and the family of Moreno's ex-husband. Moreno was killed by off-duty officers working security. Police say Moreno's son remains in critical condition with a gunshot wound to the head. Stocks are falling on Wall Street after a key reading on inflation at the consumer level in the U.S. came in hotter than expected. S&P 500 futures fell 1.1% about 10 minutes after a report from the Labor Department. Dow futures fell 0.8%, NASDAQ futures fell 1.6%, and bond yields jumped. The Labor Department report released Tuesday morning showed that consumer prices rose 3.1% in January compared to a year ago. Economists were expecting an increase of 2.9%. European indexes added to their losses after the U.S. inflation report. Asian markets were mostly higher.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
Cloudy through mid-morning, but we'll see some sunshine as the day goes on, a high near 41. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low of 28. More sunshine in the forecast tomorrow with a high near 42. I'm Lisa Marie with your Beaver County weather.
That's a look at news for now. I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and streaming worldwide at beavercountyradio.com.
Where the listeners of Beaver County have a voice. Teleforum with Eddie Crow, 724-843-1888, 724-774-1888.
Having a really interesting conversation, and it's a conversation you need to be aware of because it affects your pocketbook, or could. It's 24 minutes till 11 o'clock. DJ Frye of Frye Transportation is my guest, and we've been talking about electric school buses and school buses with seat belts. I want to go back to the electric. Off the air just for a second, you were explaining to me what the process is. You have to give the bus back, and then they charge you to take the bus back, or they charge you for the battery. And these ain't a couple 9 bolts from the dollar store. Walk me through the process to get out of electric buses.
Sure. So, Eddie, make sure we don't forget this. So what we do for the state, by the way, is subsidized.
Okay. So it is our money.
So it's subsidized by the state. So if we bill a district $2 million, typically if we're doing our job, not only keeping the people safe, but we're accurately in our audits, the district receives money back by every mile that we travel with their student on the bus, not the miles traveled without students, okay? But one of the biggest criteria is the age of the bus. Total percentage of capacity and age of the bus.
Well, that kind of makes sense. You don't want old rickety stuff.
That's right. So that's why you see we rotate these buses every 3 to 4 years, because that's when it starts getting lower and lower for the district and ultimately us taxpayers. So the electric buses right now, some of that red line that we talked about, or the red tape lettering on these grants, you have to keep them for a minimum 5 years. So right now, that's going to hurt the local districts a little bit with their subsidy.
Well, they're not going to make it if you're turning them over 3 years, but you get stuck with, lithium boy for 5. So you're 2 years old with the buses just to qualify for the grant?
That's right. So
okay.
Yeah, so not only do we got to keep it longer, and it's going to hurt our local subsidy for our districts, but we also right now, so that we keep a healthy used market for the electric school bus that really doesn't exist right now.
I was going to say, who's buying those? Okay.
Right. We have to right now we would need to replace all those batteries when we trade those in. And that's a cost.
Wait a minute. When I trade, and I've traded in some crappy cars, and you know what they did every time? We'll take it, we'll give you this much. So before you trade it back in, you have to get it up to spec with batteries that can cost 10, 20 grand?
Sure. And I'm glad you said that, because right now I'm a numbers guy. I don't know what kind of equity I'm going to have in these buses.
Don't sound like much.
Not much, especially when I have an $80,000, $100,000 possible bill of replacing those batteries so they can be resold somewhere, or the joke in our industry is they're going to go to Arizona in the desert somewhere and whatever.
Like, out in the desert, like the airplane desert that's out there, and it's just this graveyard.
Who knows? I don't even know if it exists yet, because all this is all new. But that's I know right now, if you use that federal grant,
they own you. I'll say it. You don't have to say it, but if it's the old saying, "Ain't nothing free."
Right.
This sounds like you get on the back end and costs you a ridiculous amount of money. Does this happen? You said earlier this is something that comes up every 5 or 10 years. Is this coming up, electric bus conversation? Is it coming up more often than that recently?
It's popped up out of nowhere, really, the last 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, before that was propane and natural gas.
How about hydrogen?
I haven't gotten into hydrogen. Yeah,
Okay.
But so 10 years ago when I really stepped out on my own, it was natural gas, and then it went propane. And I'll tell you this story, inside story. Those kind of just went away. I was really blessed to have an opportunity. Wolfington, which is a really big bus dealer, they all paid expenses. They brought me to Tulsa, Oklahoma last year. I got to spend 3 days in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was one of the very first ones to actually see the new electric bus plant in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was fascinating. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I really thank them still to this day for flying me down there to take a look at that.
They wanted your opinion, and they wanted to show you what was up and ask you what you thought?
I think it was more of a thanks for buying 100 buses from me, maybe.
Or that.
Yeah, but needless to say, why I bring that up is the gentleman that picked me up from the airport, we started talking buses. I had no idea who he was at that time. It turned out he was one of the head engineers for Navistar, which is owned by Volkswagen. And I said, sir, is this going to be like propane and natural gas? Is this just going to go away? And we happened to hit a red light, turned around, and he said, son, you're young. I know that's why they love you. He goes, unfortunately, it's here to stay. Is it just going to get kicked down and stretched out is the question. But there's so much money that has been invested in this, and wait till you see this plant. This money was given to us to build this plant. It's all hands on deck right now. So I don't think the electric bus is going to go anywhere like the propane and natural gas buses.
724-843-1888 or 774-1888 if you've got a question. DJ Frye of Frye Transportation is my guest, and we're talking about electric buses and being forced and subservient. Well, he's not. I am. Hi, thank you for calling. What's your name? Hi, Georgie. How are you, brother? Hey, never been better and had less. What's up?
Okay. Mr. George, the first question to answer that, right now, all indications right now, as we mentioned earlier in this segment, right now, the new diesel buses have increased, 28% in the last, so many months, but they're right around $145,000 right now. They had always been right around $100,000 up till, 2 years ago. Right now, we got a price tag of $350,000 for electric bus, just one of them.
So even with the uptick on the diesel, it's still half the electric.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, next question. On a diesel, what is the percentage of hydrocarbons on a diesel now? Do you have a report on the hydrocarbons that the diesel's producing?
I don't want to misspeak. I don't have that. I know all the DEF and all of that kind of things are, supposedly to help with a lot of different pollutants. But I unfortunately, Georgie, I don't have the answer on that.
I don't even know what that question meant, Georgie. Right. I just worry about my private jet. Uh-huh.
Right. Great question there. All what we're receiving, just so the Pennsylvania School Bus Association, which I'm a member of, proud member of, we get a lot of our data just like all the states do. Right now, a lot of the documentation and data that's, the testing has been done in Arizona. So it's a different climate, different, layout, less hills, the whole 9 yards. They're estimating here in Pennsylvania, we're going to see somewhere about 120 to 180 miles on a charge. That's not, you got the heaters on, you got all kinds of different cameras and automatic snow change. You got two-way radios pulling from everything. I'll be honest with you right now, if the Beaver Area School District would make the state championship, basketball, football, any of our districts, we would not be able to get to the state championship location on one charge. I'll assure you that.
So you would have to stop with 4 or 5 busloads of kids somewhere where there were 4 or 5 places to plug in, and they'd just hang out for 3 or 4 hours.
And George, can you imagine how many kids we would have? We'd have 5 or 6 buses parked in Breezewood waiting for a charger, and all the kids would be floating around waiting for our buses. But George, thank you for your call because it's fascinating, and I will tell you.
He's got.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, that was my question. The time elements there. Okay, what do you have an idea what the cost would be when you go to these charging stations, and who's going to feed these kids when the buses are sitting there getting charged? I mean, kids will get rowdy. They want to do things. They want something to eat.
Right.
There's a lot that you guys have to look into before you jump the gun here and buying buses like this, because what I've read so far and seen so far on electric vehicles, they just don't make the grade. They really don't.
So.
Sure, it's nice. They're going to give you $2 million, but you know what? That's still taxpayers' money. It's an awful deal. Prove to me that these buses and that electric vehicles are that worthy. You're getting the cart before the horse here.
You know what, George? I personally agree 100%. And I say this all the time, and Eddie and I have been talking about this for a while. So it's a heck of a cost. I mean, it truly is a real big cost. And if you look in my industry right now, there's a national driver shortage. Now, we are blessed. I know a lot of our faithful listeners, the Greg Laughtons, who have been in the industry many years, they're listening right now. They love Beaver County Radio. But we have we have a tremendous staff. But nationally, there is a shortage across the board. And, the vehicle has increased in price. The insurance market, we have so many providers right now that are leaving our market to cover our exposure. That's a supply and demand issue.
Why are they leaving?
It could be, it's not necessarily the crash. It's more of the child abuse and molestation threat, all the different, it's a very sue-happy country. You know that, Eddie.
Yeah.
So all of these additional expenses, the one thing that gets lost in all of it, and where our priority should be when I go to a district and say, hey, I need a 10% increase, just not the basic CPI, because we're always capped at 3.5% CPI. And the issue is price increases have been way higher than 3.5%. But we need to go to our superintendents and our school boards to say, I need this 10%, not because of an electric school bus, not because of the seatbelts. Again, safety is really important to me. And not because my insurance is necessarily going crazy right now. I need it for labor. Because the most important thing is not the name on the bus. It's not who gets stuck with the electric bill or the gas bill. It's the individual, the makeup and the character of the individuals behind the wheel. We need great people, and we need to be able to go out and continue to give great increases annually to our bus drivers, because that is who's delivering the precious cargo, is the bus drivers.
Completely off the subject question. What personality traits make a good bus driver?
Eddie Crow.
Dude, I wouldn't trust me within 10 feet. You know what kind of bus driver I would be? Are you familiar with Billy Madison? You remember Chris Farley as the bus driver? That would be me on a good day. Or the bus driver lady who they killed off from The Simpsons.
That's great. I was thinking Tommy Boy. But
Tommy Boy, thank you.
We have 3 really target markets, and 2 of them is very similar. Sit
down and shut up!
We have the stay-at-home mom. We have the stay-at-home dad. Mm-hmm. Those are fascinating target markets for employment, because you get paid to essentially do what you're doing. You're already up early, getting everybody ready. Come on in and make a couple $100 doing, working for us and in your community. But our main target market is the retiree, the semi-retired, because I'll tell you, and we got to give a shout out to our local union leaders because, a lot of our older demographic workers, our bus drivers, our van drivers, they came from the skilled trades here in Beaver County. And when they come to us, they have the greatest work ethic.
They show up.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Look, I can make fun of my generation. It stinks when it comes to a work ethic. I'll be honest with you. I'm old school. I'm a Beaver County and through. And I tell you what, that stay-at-home mom has that motherly instinct. That stay-at-home father has that same instinct, right? That older demographic bus driver not only has that grandparent mentality, but they carry that lunchbox and hard helmet with them when they come to drive bus. They're there every day. And, it has a lot to do with our local labor industry and the unions. They're strong and they're dedicated.
Work ethic.
It's just tremendous. It really is.
You were kidding when you said me.
Yeah, well.
Okay. The best thing a man could know is his limitations, and I could not do that job.
You'd be a fantastic monitor. Help assist, make.
Oh, okay. I'm not allowed to drive the bus, but I'm in the back.
So if they put seatbelts on big school buses,
right?
You're first in line to be that second adult on that bus to make sure little Susie and little Billy have their seatbelt on.
How big a logistical nightmare would that be? You're a bus driver. They said every Johnny and Susie, they got to have seatbelts on. How do you keep track of that?
It's putting more pressure on the driver. It really is.
Because kids, as soon as the kid sits down, you hear the click. Oh, they put this, and they're going to take it off.
And to Georgie's thing, I think he hit a home run with his questions because he is spot on. It is a financial disaster. It really is. I went through some of it, but with the seatbelts alone.
How much?
We have to, so the estimate's another $10,000 upfront. That's just upfront cost, which is peanuts in the whole thing.
That's an estimate.
The big thing is the hidden and the back end cost, because that has to do with logistics. We talked about earlier about losing capacity. So in Beaver, instead of having 20 elementary buses, they're going to need 25 or 30, which means 10 or 15 more bus drivers. But I highly encourage any legislation to include the mandate of 2 or an extra adult in there to make sure everyone's in their safety belts. But more importantly, in an accident situation, to help get everybody out of the bus as well.
I'm thinking of a flight attendant at that point.
Sure.
You're sitting there just in case.
Minus the meals, minus the free Coca-Cola and the peanuts.
What should I have asked you that I didn't ask you? Because all you did was make me wonder more stuff. Is there, if they get it to the tipping point of the bus costs the same, diesel or electric, is that when it becomes considerable?
Well, yeah, sure. There's a lot of things to make it considerable. So the one thing I do always tell people, this is where my personal standpoint is on the electric bus. I love electric tools. I used to chuckle with my neighbor. He had an electric lawnmower. My wife bought me an electric lawnmower this year for a push mower for Christmas. So
really?
I'm actually excited to see how this works out.
Aren't you worried? Now wait, aren't you worried with it? I see him. I have a neighbor. I'm terrified watching it because I'm going to run over that cord.
No. This is battery.
Oh, it's battery. It's not one of the cord back and forth?
No, this is Milwaukee.
How long is the battery going to last?
I'm going to find out.
I'm going to check.
I'm going to find out. Right. It's another. We'll come back and report on that. But
Briggs and Stratton's got my money, baby.
I love the idea. I do. When it comes to the buses, I'm going to sit back. I make recommendations. A lot of districts. I would like to see the technology mature a little bit.
Okay.
Let's let everybody else work the kinks and bugs out for us, because the one thing that I think is slightly fascinating, because this is going to be a financial bearing on a lot of people. What can we do with the extra energy that these buses may be collecting? Is there something down the road in the future where
you're talking about becoming a power service, selling it?
Is there an opportunity where I can sell some of the extra, energy to drive my costs down for the taxpayer and the districts? Could a joint partnership between me and the districts as the buses are used for? But we're not even there. We're not even close to that right now. We need the technology to bake in and mature a little bit so we can figure out, let's continue to get the kids to and from school safely, and let's figure out financially on the back end, before we do all of this, can it really help a lot of people?
Who's going to eat the technology cost to put chargers in everywhere? Is that going to be thrown on the back of of the owners of the buses? Is that the municipalities?
Well, like anything else, Eddie, in our industry, in like any private sector business out there, it's always a pass through. So where does it land? It's unfortunately going to land in the laps of us, the taxpayer. So any increase in operational costs for any bus contractor is just an increase on their contract, which gets passed through the district, which ultimately, you know where it lands, in our lap. So yes, you know, my 3 big terminals, if we have electric vehicles, electric fleet, we have to convert all of those terminals into charging stations.
And you're talking about 90 buses on the road, 30 charging stations per terminal to be up and ready to go 100%.
You know, one thing, let's just share this too. It's not as expensive right now. We split a lot of contracts in Beaver County, the districts, the school districts pay 100% the cost for diesel or gasoline, 100%. We, as Frye, our family, we have always in our contracts split it 50-50. Let's have an invested interest on our usage because we really need to watch that usage properly. So we bore that 50-50 with our districts. When you're looking at the bus, one bus that is just an in-district bus, we budget about $2,000. It's between $1,200 and $2,000 annually, our cost for just that bus diesel. Right now, I think we'd be paying a little bit more money for electricity.
Will you come back and visit again?
Anytime.
DJ Frye of Frye Transportation. I got schooled up big time. I didn't even have to get on the bus. I would be the worst freaking bus driver.
Monitor. Good monitor.
Yeah. The heavy-handed guy in the back twitching. They'll sit up straight, won't they?
Just make sure you look good on tape, Eddie. Put a good tape in there.
Good luck with that. Thank you, sir.
Anytime.
Beaver County Radio, your hometown radio station. You're listening live from the Frye